to the 8th edition of the LoJoWo podcast. Like I said last episode, still not really in love with that name, the LoJoWo podcast, and I am thinking of possibly changing names to something more basketball related. But since I uploaded that episode, I've also had, some second thoughts. Maybe just keep it the same. Maybe just post anything on this feed like my idea was from the beginning. And it now just being basketball season, me just talking about basketball right now, but still having the freedom to do, whatever, I guess. But, it's just hard for me because I know that, if I'm trying to be serious about this and have this podcast grow and be like something that really at least takes off a bit, I'd want to make it probably more focused on a thing that has it fills a niche, like it's marketed towards, a group of people that want to hear about a certain thing. You're really narrowing the net that you're casting when you start adding more things in to what you talk about, to what your content is about, because then you're probably going to lose a lot of people that don't care about a number of the other things that you're talking about. So you're narrowing down the amount of people that are probably going to be interested in your stuff. But there's probably some people that like the wider range of stuff, and also it could, in another way, it could lead me to more people that share the same interests as me. Even though it's not as big, it might be more rewarding or more fun that way. I really don't know which one to go with, because it would take more time and effort, to split up feeds, have more feeds. I'd have to pay more to have another feed on Spotify, and just stuff like that. And so, I don't know if I want to treat it more realistically, like where I'm at right now, I should probably just keep one feed. So yeah, I guess I don't really know which way to go on that, which way is the right way of thinking about it. But just like always, I'm super open to suggestions, feedback from anybody listening. It'd be very appreciated. But yeah. So this episode, I just wanted to talk about my reactions to first round series, all the game ones of the first round series. I already recorded my reaction to the first Denver-Utah game, which was crazy and nuts. But yeah, I went into it. It was really basically my initial reaction was just a couple hours after that game finished. And so I have that recorded. I'm basically going to be splicing together some of my somewhat instant reactions to these games. I'll be posting them in order in this podcast episode. So, the games that happened in chronological order, I think is how I'm going to do it. Yeah, I'll probably be talking about the game. I'll be talking about how I think the series is going to go moving forward, what, takeaways from that game and all that kind of stuff. So, and I'll probably do kind of minimal editing on this episode, even though I'm splicing stuff together. But I'll probably do minimal editing to save time to get this episode out before game 2 start, hopefully. So I think that's going to be the plan. So to start off, here's my basically instant reaction to that Utah versus Denver game 1, which was at 12:30 p.m. on Monday. I'll probably mention that. But yeah, here's that recording. Okay, so I'm recording this on Monday, August 17th. A couple hours ago, the Nuggets and Utah game 1 of the first round series concluded in overtime. And I just thought I would record a little bit of my reactions to it. Donovan Mitchell is so ridiculously good. The NBA right now is too good. At this point, I've been feeling this way for a while, but at this point, I really feel like nobody can convince me that this isn't the most star-studded, just completely top to bottom, deepest talent pool of players that we've ever had. It's absolutely ridiculous. A player should not be able to do what Donovan Mitchell did tonight in a playoff game and be barely an all-star. He's like a fringe all-star in this league just because of how many talented guards like him of his caliber that we have. I go back and forth on Booker versus Mitchell a lot. I've kind of been of the opinion for a while that Mitchell should be given the edge just because all he does for that Utah offense and how many wins it does produce, like his impact on the game is in a winning culture and all that kind of stuff. I just thought, until Booker really shows what he can do in a winning culture, I always kind of just thought we have to give the edge to Mitchell. And then this whole bubble games, these seeding games where Booker was on fire and really, the Suns were looking really hot. Then I thought, well, Booker is just looking super good. Maybe it is dumb that I thought that maybe we should give the edge to Mitchell, or maybe even that I was thinking this was a conversation. And then tonight, and the last game between the Nuggets and the Jazz as well, Mitchell just, I don't know, he's re-sparked that conversation for me again, where and then outside of those two, you still have Bradley Beal, who, where do you throw Beal in that? I think for the longest while I've put Bradley Beal over those two the past season or two, but now I don't know. It's ridiculous. It seems ridiculous that these guys can have games like they've had. Devin Booker scoring 71, Donovan Mitchell scoring 57 in a playoff game, and them going on hot streaks, and just the array of moves and things that they have at their disposal. They just look like tremendous scorers, can score with the best of them, but then they're not making all NBA teams because there's just too many guards. And yeah, so yeah, I don't know what else to say. And then not even mentioning Zach LaVine, Trae Young, and then some guys that were put on the All NBA teams over them, or will probably be put on All NBA teams over them, like Damian Lillard, like Luka Doncic, like James Harden, Jimmy Butler, Chris Paul, all those kinds of guys. I don't know. It seems like there's just way more guys that seem. It just seems like there's way more assassins, just complete phenomenal ISO scorers in the league right now than there ever has been. And it's just pretty crazy to see. And then, also even Jamal Murray tonight. I was very impressed with the game that Jamal Murray had. I knew that he was capable of a game like this, but he was looking really, really good. That was probably one of the best games of his career. He's a guy that has all those moves. He has all those step backs and dribble moves and stuff like that. But he's somebody that's really streaky, And tonight he was on the peaks. He was right up there on the peak of his, streaks where he's nailing everything. And yeah, that was really cool to see from him tonight. And also just how fearless he was, and how, he stepped up in really huge moments at the end of the game. In the end of regulation and OT. Something I really like from Jamal Murray is how he keeps his dribble alive, like I think Doris Burke was talking about during the game today. Just how he's so shifty, and how he, on every dribble up when it's, at the peak, and when the dribble's at its apex, up at the waist to chest height, he seems to be considering multiple different options on where to go, whether he's putting it back down on the floor to move, spinning, shooting, passing, all that stuff is coming from, the one place that he has the ball. And he really just keeps all of his options open all the time. And it's also something that's really hard to read, because he gets into this spot that you can see that he's capable of doing all those different things that I just laid out. As a defender, you can see him going to any of those, and you really don't know what's coming. You have to prepare yourself for all of it, and that's just something that I think is a really, really, really useful skill to have as a guard. I think it's something that Chris Paul has made a living out of doing. But yeah, so that's a really cool thing to see from Jamal Murray. Michael Porter Jr. looked pretty good tonight. At the beginning of the game, how confidently he was shooting. He's just stepped right into a really big pull-up three. I kind of wanted it to keep going, and I kind of feel like just by how the whole Nuggets bench looked, and how the coaching staff and everybody reacted to that pull-up three, nobody really looked happy. It they went straight into a timeout after that, and they didn't really look like they were happy about it. It looked more like they were upset with him pulling up and taking that kind of a shot. And I really think that made his confidence waver the rest of the game. After that three, after they came back from that timeout, I don't think he really ever looked the same. He seemed much more hesitant in, the shots he was looking for and stuff like that. So I don't know if I like that very much. I think that Michael Porter Jr. is a tremendous talent, very special. I think, he's one of those guys that, sure, he can fall into some points and he can let the offense come to him a bit, but I feel like he's best utilized as somebody who takes control. He's somebody that he gets the offense going. He goes out and seeks out his shots. He goes and gets offense that he wants. Like, he's somebody that has that kind of command and control over, that's just the type of shot creator he is. And allowing him to have a little bit more free reign, I think might be a good for his development. But, maybe also Mike Malone just thinking that they need to, play more cohesive as a team, more of, I guess, the Nugget style of basketball, which is, more team basketball, fluid offense, let offense come to you and everything like that, which I respect. But I think maybe what we see from Michael Porter Jr. at his age right now is, if you're not playing him the way I mentioned that he would be best utilized at, as kind of, having a little bit more free reign, then I think he's just basically a negative out there. Like, on the offensive end, he's still positive, but how, I guess, inexperienced and how much he really falls asleep on the defensive end of the floor a lot of times really hurts, I think, this Nuggets squad versus, people that they could have in there like Millsap and Grant, who are both tremendous defenders. So maybe, I guess what I'm saying is, I wonder if he's somebody that, at least right now, for him to be a positive contributor, you have to give him that free reign, because that's where he tips the scales in, how much he gives up on the defensive end. He's providing that much more on the offensive end. And if he's not doing that on the offensive end, then, he's really just not really a contributor to the game in a positive way as much. That was just some of my thoughts from, I guess, what I've seen from MPJ so far, and this game very heavily, probably made its imprint on that opinion. But so we'll see moving forward. And I'm sure MPJ is going to develop into a much more well-rounded player in this league that can put it all together, get better at some of those weak spots that I mentioned. So, yeah, I guess we'll see. But it'll be interesting to see how this all goes in this playoff run. I am still pretty confident about this series for Denver, but I think less so now. I feel like the more and more I watch the NBA, the more and more I start to see what Greg Popovich was talking about a number of years ago, I think like 3 or 4 years ago now, where he said after a game against the Warriors that all the beauty is leaving basketball, that the beauty in basketball is dying because of the 3-point shot, the kind of the revolution the Warriors started with the 3-ball, which it does kind of make sense. Like, when you're looking at teams, I think it's harder now to pick who's going to win in a game based off of the talent they have on the roster. Like, obviously that's still an advantage that teams are going to hold and everything, but it's really becoming more of, I guess, weighted by the hot streak that some players are on, just because of how many threes teams are throwing up now. Whoever catches more fire really is building such a tremendous advantage, and that doesn't always mean the better team, even over like multiple weeks at a time. One team could be just way hotter than they normally are, and they can meet a team that's slightly less hot than what they usually would be for a stretch, and that just spells disaster for that team that, in terms of every other analysis of those two teams, is like the superior team. So I definitely do see that from what Greg Popovich said, how he feels like really all you have to look at in a post game now on the stat sheet is the 3-point percentage of each team. How many threes did each team make? And that's really what it boils down to now. So I guess I just don't know how I feel about that exactly. For a while, I didn't really feel that way about it. I still was really entertained by it. I guess it's just a little bit of a fear of mine looking at the NBA, looking how it's played now, how it is a bit more high variance in the winner and a little bit less predictable. But, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But it's, I guess it's also just the point that it's reliant really on one variable much more so now than it has in the past. But yeah, so that's, I guess, some thoughts on that. But yeah, hopefully Jamal Murray throws a couple more games like this in this playoff run. It can have at least games, somewhat like this where he is popping off, because, in the games that he's not, it's pretty ugly to watch usually. But I'm rooting for him to change the script on that and really prove me wrong for sure. Tonight, it was a good start for that, if that's what his goal is. So Jokic had a good game as always. I like to see him work a little bit more from with those jump shots from the elbow against Gobert. It seemed like Gobert was giving him quite a bit of space on those, and he was hesitating and kind of just giving him up and deciding to drive in for a layup instead, which I think driving into a guy like Gobert who has arms that go on for days, I'd like to see him try more of those from the elbow and see what's a more efficient shot for him in this series. But yeah, a really good game from Rudy Gobert. He played awesome on the defensive end of the floor. Also had 17 points, pretty good job inside. Got a lot of offensive rebounds. Joe Ingles had a super good game. He was looking really good out there, hitting threes, making the right play, facilitating wise. He did something that I thought was really interesting, guarding Michael Porter Jr. at the beginning of the game, or like basically in the first quarter. Michael Porter Jr. is somebody that is really adept, I would say, at cutting at the right times. He knows when to collapse and when to dive to the rim and everything like that on not just for passes but also for offensive rebounds and stuff like that. But on one play in particular, Joe Ingles drew a foul on Michael Porter Jr. when the Nuggets were on offense, and it was on a play where MPJ kind of curled around at the top of the key and started to dive down to the rim, and Joe Ingles was playing him backwards so Joe Ingles was facing the ball and had his back to Michael Porter Jr., but kind of had his head on a swivel looking at both things, and really jumped out in front of MPJ's path while he was cutting to the rim, just with his back turned to him, and had him just run right into the back of him, and Joe Ingles really sold it and fell over. So he drew a foul on one of MPJ's cuts, which I thought was a really smart play from Joe Ingles. He's definitely watched some scouting reports and some film on Michael Porter Jr. and knows his tendencies in those situations. So that's going to be something super interesting to see in this playoff series, to see how Michael Porter Jr. adjusts to that in his first experience in the playoffs. So I'm excited to watch the Celtics and Sixers game in a little bit. It should be a good one. Like I said, my two friends, Jacob and Anthony. Jacob's a Celtics fan and Anthony's a Sixers fan. So it's a pretty entertaining dynamic usually, having those two to talk to about basketball. But yeah, earlier this week, they both mutually decided to gang up and just hate the Bucks, which I thought was funny. They were two people that really were upset with Giannis only being suspended for one game for the headbutt issue, which I didn't know about until after I recorded my podcast. I didn't know that they would feel that way about it. I was a little surprised actually, but it seems like both of them just have somewhat of a distaste for the Bucks and Giannis, which I kind of like. It's just kind of funny, kind of entertaining to see their opinions on that. And they were also really mad about the Bucks losing to Memphis in the final game of the season and not allowing the Phoenix Suns to make it into the play-in against the Blazers. So it is really funny to see them finally agreeing on something when it comes to basketball. And I promised them that I would mention that in this episode, them teaming up, just hating the Bucks. So yeah, I guess that's been an entertaining development in my life. But yeah, I guess I'll just close this off by saying Donovan Mitchell is ridiculous. He is so good. He's so shifty, bouncy. He really puts it on the floor, makes good decisions. Yeah, I was just really impressed with what I saw from him tonight. And, to think he could have been a Nugget. He was drafted by the Nuggets and traded to the Jazz on draft night. Like, man, what he could be in the Nugget system would be something that I would have loved to see. A pairing between him and Jokic, I think would have been a good one. And so here's my reaction to the Nets versus Raptors game 1, which was on Monday as well, just after the Nuggets game. I think the beginning of it had already started while the Nuggets Jazz game was in overtime and Jamal Murray was hitting step back after step back. So I wasn't really too surprised by this game. I knew the Raptors were going to win. Raptors are just the far superior team over the Nets. And I also was expecting the Nets to show some fight and some fervor like they had in the last few seeding games. they went on a really big run. It was a pretty insane run. I think they went on like 30-10 run, something like that, at one point in the third quarter. They basically, I think, narrowed it down to like single digits at the very end of the third. I think Jared Allen actually hit a buzzer beater at the end of the third that cut it to 9. But yeah, they did end up losing by 24 though. But yeah, they had a good stretch there for a little while. Not too much to make of this game. I think Raptors are still getting this series. I think either in 4 or 5. Probably 4 is what I'd bet on. But yeah, Karis LeVert had a really good game. 15 points, 15 assists, and 7 rebounds. Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot is a guy that I've always liked as a role player on 2K for a while now. But yeah, it was cool to see him have a really good game for this Nets team. He had 26 points, and I saw that he was hitting quite a few threes in this game. And then Fred VanVleet had a huge game. He had 30 points, 11 assists. Kyle Lowry had 16. Gasol 13, Siakam 18. OG with 12, and Serge with 22. Terrence Davis had a pretty good game too, 11 points in 12 minutes. He was good while he was in there. Yeah, I guess really not too much make of this series. I think this is the second most. Actually, I think this is one of the 2 most boring series of the first round. So, but just thought I would record a reaction to every single one of these. But yeah, I'll move on. So here's my reaction to the Sixers and Celtics game, which I caught most of it. I watched the majority of it. I did go play basketball with my friend Keith, who was mentioned in last episode. I went to play basketball with him for a little while the game was happening, but I was listening to it in the car. I got to see like the end of it for the most part, but I watched basically the whole game before that. It was a lot of, I think, what I expected. Joel Embiid, but the one thing, Joel Embiid started off the game great. Like, he was doing what he needed to be doing. He kind of seemed like he lost a little bit of his edge as the game went on. He lost a little bit of his intensity and aggressiveness. It's like the Celtics, like Brad Stevens, a great coach. The Celtics, great wing defense, great team defense, good unit on that end of the floor. But Joel Embiid should not be that easy to stop, to contain in a game 1 of the series with just undersized, like with Marcus Smart playing off ball on defense and Jaylen Brown and Gordon Hayward and Brad Wanamaker, and Jason Tatum, just scaring him, popping in and out from their man who's on the perimeter to him while he's posting up, and basically neutralizing so many of those post ups that he had by kind of jabbing in there, knocking the ball out, or getting him to toss it out to Marcus Smart did, getting him to toss it out to the open shooter, but Marcus Smart anticipated it and stuff like that. It's and it's not just Brett Brown's fault. It's also just the shooters on the Sixers. Okay, those guys out there on the perimeter, while Embiid is posting up and Marcus Smart keeps hedging in, keeps going farther and farther into Embiid and getting him to throw it exactly where he wants him to. Be smarter. Relocate. Find a passing lane. If Marcus Smart is standing in between you and the ball, which that's his job as a defender, and he's paying that much attention to Embiid, relocate. Make it hard for him to pay attention to you and Embiid. You're just standing there, and he doesn't need to worry about you. He has your passing lane covered if your passing lane is just sitting there, not moving. You're not moving your passing lane in any way. You're not creating anything by relocating. You're just standing there. I just saw that so many times, that type of thing where, those guys are stationary out there. They're spot up 3-point shooters, but spot up 3-point shooters need to be able to relocate around the arc, create open passing lanes. You have to keep the defense moving. The defense is you can't let the defense adjust to you and figure out and just be set up the way that you're set up on those passing lanes. They're going to be able to play you and the guy with the ball way easier than if you were moving and cutting at the right time or doing all those things off ball. Brett Brown as the coach needs to point that out to his team, and people in the NBA should know to do that. Playing off ball around the arc, you need to move. when a guy's posting up. If your guy's standing in between him and you and paying a lot of attention to that guy, to the guy with the ball, move. Do something. Like, Embiid will find you. Embiid is a capable enough passer. But, allowing those types of plays to happen, I think really gets to Embiid's head. Like, Marcus Smart as a defender, those guys really making it seem like he's too pressured. He can't be performing or whatever. Like, if some of the guys around the perimeter would do some of that work for him, do their job as spot up 3-point shooters. Like, I don't know. I feel like that game could have gone so much differently. And also, Al Horford needs to be out there too. When he's out on the floor with Embiid, he needs to be behind the arc. He needs to be in the corner, the opposite corner of when Embiid is posting, preferably. Why is he on the block? Why is he on the opposite block? Why, you're making it so much easier to have Embiid basically triple teamed comfortably, not too far away from their assignments. Just get out of the way. I don't know. I just feel like Brett Brown is coaching a basketball team from 20 years ago. I don't know. Is it that hard for to figure out that how spacing works in the modern NBA and how ridiculously dominant Embiid is as a one-on-one post scorer against especially against 6'8" Daniel Tice or whatever, however tall Robert Williams is, 6'9", 6'10". This guy's 7 foot 7'1", 285, whatever he is. He has post moves akin to Hakeem Olajuwon. He's like Hakeem Olajuwon light. He's like a great value Hakeem Olajuwon on the low block, but he's bigger, and he's playing against guys not even close to the size of the guys that Olajuwon was going up against. He has in terms of the Celtics team, he has easy money post ups down there on the block. I don't know why they don't utilize him. It needs to be every freaking play, basically. And when he's not in there, stagger his minutes with Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is a good, post-up option from the elbow. He can get mid-range shots like that. Run Korkmaz off some screens, get him open 3-point shots, stuff like that. Alec Burks is a pretty good shot creator off the bench. Do stuff like that. I don't know. And also, while Embiid's in there, you can all, if you don't want to run post-ups every single play, run some more Josh Richardson high screen and roll with Joel Embiid, or something like that. Get Joel Embiid involved in that way. Richardson is probably your best ball handling option in terms of that. Raul Neto doesn't need more minutes. Tobias Harris, he can handle the ball, but in a pick and roll with Embiid, Tobias Harris is a big enough guy that's just too switchable. You need to be Richardson. He's a fast guy, a big guy that you're going to need a smaller guy to guard for the most part. The Celtics team is really switchable on defense. That's what they're good at. They have really long wings. A lot of their defense is made up at the wing position, but it shouldn't be that hard to run a little bit of an action to be able to get the ball to Embiid down on the block, and you're stretching the floor in a way that the help defenders cannot just swarm Embiid slow and methodically the way they do, while still being able to close out on their guy and be in that passing lane, disrupt that passing lane. You're making it so easy on them to play the shooter and the ball at the same time. And also, yeah, this is just my instant reaction. I haven't heard this take from anybody. This is just what I thought watching the game. I didn't hear a lot of the game. I was watching without audio too, so I don't know what the broadcasters were saying. But that I wouldn't be surprised if they said something like that, because that's that's just what I was thinking basically the whole time. But yeah, I think I got really loud in that. It looks like my audio has a buzz cut because I think I was clipping in there for a while because I was getting so loud. But yeah, I'm surprised I got that passionate about Sixers Celtics. I think just because I don't understand what Brett Brown is doing. I think watching interviews with him, he seems competent and in what he's saying, and he says stuff that's making sense. Oh yeah, that's a good, but it doesn't happen. He doesn't do it on the floor is what it seems like. He seems like a super nice guy too. It seems like from watching Matisse Thybulle's vlogs and stuff, it seems like the players have fun with him. They like him, but I don't know. I don't know what it is. And he's very highly regarded by people too. He comes from the Spurs system. He was assistant coach with Greg Popovich for a long time. Him and Mike Budenholzer. Why? I don't get it. I don't know. Maybe he could be a coach somewhere else. Maybe this tandem of Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons is really just that difficult to work with, which I believe it is really difficult. But right now, you have a team without Ben Simmons that makes a lot more sense offensively on what you should do with just run like what I've been saying with Embiid, which it seemed like he was doing at the beginning of the game for the most part. But it didn't keep going, I think, because those help defenders, they started just doing what they wanted to, and the shooters weren't helping in any way. Yeah, I don't know. I'll be interested to see what Anthony and Jacob think of this. I haven't really given them this take from the game yet, but so hopefully they listen to this part. But I guess like I said, I don't know why I got so passionate. I don't really have a favorite in this, like other than like I'm predicting the Celtics will win. I think the Sixers can give them a challenge for sure. I was just talking about how they could. I guess my main thing with this series is I want it to go 7, just because from an entertainment standpoint, like I don't really care who wins beyond that. I don't have a preference, but I do have a prediction. So, and that'd be the Celtics. So that was my breakdown of that game, which is basically me just complaining about the Sixers offense. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. Now this is my reaction to the game 1 between Mavericks and Clippers, which was the primetime game on Monday, which was just last night. Today's Tuesday. So, this isn't like a directly instant reaction, but it's still pretty fresh in my mind. And I watched most of that game. I watched the whole second half. I watched parts of the first half. But so, the one big takeaway from this game that everybody has is the 2 technical fouls and the ejection of Kristaps Porzingis. I get what the refs were saying, like when they explained, like the one referee expert, whatever they had on the broadcast, talking about how those are good calls and things like that. Like I don't buy that. Like, okay, why is it the fist? Like, okay, I also another thing is so many people just bring up the second technical foul, like on things that I've seen, like videos I've seen about it, or like people talking about it. They just show the video of the second foul. Show the first one. It is ridiculous. I've never seen a technical that like touchy, that weak in a playoffs game. Like, and also just how like I don't agree totally with all the people saying like when they exaggerate it and say like Porzingis breathes, like technical foul. Obviously he did more than just breathe, but really in that sequence there for that first technical foul, it seems so bad, like so obvious almost that the refs were targeting him. I'm not saying that they were, but it really looked like that. They like the play just before Zubats. So Porzingis went up for a dunk or a layup or something. He went up to the rim and Zubats hacked him on the arm pretty clearly, like in the replay. And I guess like missing the foul call, but then the next play was just made it even worse. Like, so they missed that call and it was a bad call. Like it was a bad non-call. That should have been a foul. And then the next play, he blocks Paul George. Everybody's saying like it's extremely clean. I could see maybe be a really touchy foul, but if you're not calling the one on the other end, which is way more of a foul, then you can't call this one. And it's not even close to the same. Like he kind of bumped his shoulder, but like where the ball is and where his arm, like the whole part of his arm is, like that was a clean block as far as that. And like if I was a ref, I would say it's clean. Like there is some subjectivity to it and how much contact is too much contact and and all that kind of stuff. But it was a relatively clean block. And especially compared to how he just got hacked pretty hard the play before, he got fouled. And it's a playoff game and he's competitive. So obviously when he heard the whistle, like he had the emotion already built up. I think this is something people don't really talk about enough when it comes to this stuff. But there's like a momentum of emotion that you have. Like when your emotion gets so high because, you just had a really good block, big play for your team, you're feeling really good, really passionate, and then you hear the whistle blow and it's a foul on you, that, it's like that emotion swings back around. It's like, because that was so high, it's a, harder fall, if that makes sense. But like, I really believe that. Like when it just swings back the other way and he's mad. But the big thing is he was mad for an instant. Since when is like being instantaneously like, oh man, that was a bad call, and like throw your fist out being mad? Not even at like he was in the middle of the floor. A ref wasn't even close to him. Like he just threw it out at nobody, just yell like he was mad. And then they blow the whistle, call a technical right away. Like not even, and he was just done right after he did that. And it wasn't going further. Like, all he did was, like, I don't know. And then so many other plays, like with Kawhi later in the game, he gets called on something. He runs up to the ref. He he runs all the way up to him, and like with his arms out, like, looking animated. Why? Like, what's different about that? I don't think that should be a tech either. But like they didn't call anything on that. Why is it different when you throw like a fist? Like, you're not punching. There was nobody even close to him. He was just kind of like that's something people do. I don't get why that is such a taboo or horrible thing for a player to do when they just, they're upset about something. Why is it okay for them to run up and be animated and like throw their arms up like with a shrug and being so like mad and jumping up and down, and like they don't call technicals on that? Why? But last night in the game they called it when Porzingis threw his hand and when Paul George threw his hand on the other play. So I don't get what's the big deal about that. Are they afraid they're going to hit somebody? Like, there's nobody even close to them. They were doing it to the air. What? I don't know. That made me mad too. I thought that was stupid. The second technical, I get more. It is a bit of a weaker one, but I totally concede that, like, I wouldn't, if that was called as a technical foul for his first tech, like, I wouldn't be like, that's ridiculous, but it's just the fact that it got him tossed out of the game was like that, when that's how that first tech got so much more important, or so much more egregious. So the second one though, he ran up, he was protecting his player. I think, like, definitely like old school coaches and people will tell you that's good. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, but I kind of get, he's coming out as a third party. It looked like it was kind of diffusing between Luka and Marcus Morris for the most part. And he was kind of escalating the situation a bit. But yeah, so I kind of get that. But it's nothing to get thrown out of a game for. That's especially a playoff game in a series where they're the underdogs and they were up in game one. Like, you're really going to do that to them? Like, it just, I know that it's probably not true, but like, so many people will say and are very confident in saying, the league is just trying to get the Clippers to win and stuff like that. And because the league wants the Clippers to win, that means they briefed the refs, who are also, who are their own individuals and not not the NBA as a whole. Like, they briefed them and told them, we'll give you a bonus if you do this, or I don't know what people think they do. But, I feel like people kind of make the NBA out to be just one massive entity with the refs and everything included as like a hive mind and not like their own individuals. But that, I can definitely see how people would think that, though, how it's like, that's what it seems like. They're just making them win. Like, they're really robbing Dallas of this win. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying that that's not happening, but I'm just saying that you can't know that. It could very well just be coincidental that they were making just bad calls or, whatever, but because refs are bad sometimes. So moving forward, like I said before in this podcast series, I think this series is basically like a death sentence for the Mavericks, just in terms of matchup with the Clippers. But I was really impressed with how they played tonight. I think the Clippers weren't playing super well for most of the game, but yeah, I was impressed with what the Mavericks were able to do. Especially like Michael Kidd-Gilchrist hitting threes and all that kind of stuff. Luka Doncic had a phenomenal game. Obviously, scored 42 points, which is the most ever by a player in their playoff debut. Porzingis had 14 points. He only played 20 minutes out there because he got ejected pretty early in the second half. Yeah, he was having a pretty decent game as well, and is a big factor even when he's not scoring. He's a big factor on the offensive end and the defensive end of the floor. Like, he's a rim protector, somebody who definitely gets in people's heads when they're driving towards the rim when he's on the floor, for sure. He blocks more shots than he actually physically blocks because of just his presence there, just like a Rudy Gobert effect, kind of. And then also on the offensive end of the floor, even if he's not scoring or whatever, he's not a guy that people sag off of, like, ever. He's a sharpshooting 7'3" monster. Like, he's somebody that they have to stay pretty tight on just about anywhere on the floor. So yeah, so he opens up just a lot of things for the offense to run, even if he's not, even if he doesn't have a hot hand. So it was a big thing for him to get kicked out of the game. Also, with them missing Willie Cauley-Stein and Dwight Powell, the only option they have in there for the five is Maxi Kleber and Boban Marjanovic, which are not the guys you always want to play in certain matchups. But yeah, especially with this game going the way it did, I think Clippers are going to take the series. Kind of rooting for the Mavs though as an underdog. Something I could definitely see is like Porzingis and especially Doncic, just how competitive they are, really having a chip on their shoulder in the next game, coming in and just really playing hard and taking this. But, Kawhi is a different breed. Paul George is a phenomenal player. If Kawhi goes on a little bit of a tear like he did last season or last postseason, I think it's going to be over. But, yeah, I think this will turn out to be a more entertaining series than I thought previously. But, yeah, we'll see. Okay, and here's my reaction to the Bucks and Magic game, which just finished a couple hours ago. So, obviously, people are kind of freaking out about this game. Vucevic was able to score at will down there, and Giannis had a good game. The rest of the Bucks team didn't perform too well, but other than, I think George Hill had a good game coming in off the bench. I think he's going to be a big guy in this postseason for this Bucks team. But yeah, maybe you remember last season Magic had a very similar game 1 to the playoffs. They were the 7 seed against the Raptors in the first round, and they won the first game pretty easily too, game 1. But then the Raptors won the next 4, so it still ended in 5, even though they won the first game. And everybody was making a big deal after the first game that the Magic were going to win this series, and the Raptors are choking again, and all that kind of stuff. And also last season the Nets beat the Sixers in the first in game 1, and that was a big thing too. Which I'm pretty sure that series ended in 5 as well. Maybe 6, but I think it was 5. But that one was a much more contested series. I think the Nets were giving the Sixers kind of more problems all series long for the most part. They were a pretty feisty matchup. Magic, though, completely rolled over after the first game for the most part. They weren't really a challenge for the Raptors after that. But, yeah, it's just first game is probably the most unpredictable. The better team will get better as the series goes along. Will separate themselves more from the other team in terms of game plan, coaching, and things like that. But yeah, it was weird that this happened to the Bucks for sure, and is understandably a red flag for a lot of people for it. Like that makes sense. But to say that and be confident the Magic are going to win more games after this, I think is a bit of a stretch. I think this type of thing it happens. So I don't think it's something to blow too out of proportion. But yeah, really good game from Vucevic. And another big thing that was weird about this game is I don't like matchup wise. You would think the Magic, like Evan Fournier wasn't playing well, offensively, like scoring wise at least. You're missing Aaron Gordon, one of your best guys on the defensive end, and Jonathan Isaac, who I would say is your best guy on the defensive end. And Jonathan Isaac, he's really the type of player to become, really emerge as the prototypical Giannis stopper in years to come. Like right now, I'd say he's definitely one of the top 10 players to guard Giannis in the league. And, you're playing the Bucks without him. And then your second best option for that assignment would definitely be Aaron Gordon, without a doubt. And you don't have him either. And without, other than those two, you don't have anything to put on Giannis that would you feel comfortable with at all. And it showed. Giannis had a really good game, but somehow, I guess the Bucks supporting cast, not a good game. And Vucevic had a really good game, and it just broke this way. But yeah, so we'll see what it's like moving forward. I think Bucks win 4-1, but we'll see. And if the Magic were to win, I should have said this in last episode, but this is something that I was thinking with the Raptors and the Bucks. If the Nets or the Magic were to win a game in this first round series, I knew it was probably going to be game 1. Like that was what I was thinking. I probably should have said that because that would make this a better prediction. But yeah, that's just usually how it is with when it's a first round matchup between a high seed and a low seed. If they win a game, it's probably like the first one, and then after that, it's different. But yeah, just because the higher seed might not be taking the game as seriously as they should be, they're caught off guard by something. But as the series goes along, more separation is created usually between the best team and between the better team and the worst team. For which it really shows which team is better over the course of time. But we'll see. And then this is my reaction to the Heat and Indiana game. Obviously, like prayers go up for Victor Oladipo. Hopefully he can come back healthy again, get back to his former self sometime in the future. I'm a fan of him and his career, and I hope that he gets back on track health-wise and everything. But beyond that, yeah, Miami won. I'm guessing they're going to win this series probably in 5, maybe 6 is what I'd predict, possibly even 4. But yeah, 5 is probably my best prediction to put on it, what I think it's going to be. Good game from Jimmy Butler. Really good game from Goran Dragic, Bam Adebayo. I think that's their 3 best players. And they all had really good games. We did not see Kendrick Nunn in this game. I believe he's still out. I'm not sure when he's going to come back, but yeah, we'll see on that. Tyler Hero had a pretty good game, 15 points off the bench. But yeah, TJ Warren, 22 points, 8 rebounds. Pretty good game for him. Malcolm Brogdon, who, he's a really good guy. I'm a big Malcolm Brogdon fan. He had a good game as well. But yeah, I guess not too much to react to with this one right now. But yeah. So I'm recording this one at 11:56 p.m. on Tuesday, August 18th. Just, not too long after that Portland and Lakers game finished. So this will be, I'll kind of just give my reactions to both of the last 2 games. So the Rockets Thunder game 1, and then also Blazers Lakers. So I'll start with Rockets Thunder. This was a very interesting game. Russell Westbrook sat. He's questionable to return to the series with I think it was like a quadricep tightness or strain or something like that. But Eric Gordon did take the floor tonight, and he looked really good. James Harden was cooking as always, and Jeff Green had a really good game. With this Houston offense, I don't think they're gonna miss Russell Westbrook like too much. Obviously, he's a competitor. He's a really good guy to have out there. But with this Houston system, the way that it's just built around the isolation of James Harden, and then guys that can knock down corner threes and relocate off the ball, like just stuff like that is really all they need. For the most part, Russell Westbrook really just provides somebody that can run the offense while James Harden's on the bench, and just kind of another option to have out there at the end of games to go to and stuff like that. So what he does provide is pretty important. But in a game like tonight where the Rockets are hitting their threes, they can beat anybody, and that's like I was talking about earlier in my breakdown of the Nuggets Jazz game. That's really what the NBA is kind of turning into, with just like how many threes teams are throwing up. The team that is hot is the team that's going to win, usually. And that's really what we saw tonight with the Bucks and Magic, too, which I forgot to mention with them. Like, the Bucks and Budenholzer's system is they protect the rim at all costs, and they do that, in spite of giving up threes. So, but, Budenholzer really plays the numbers on everything all the time. He plays over a whole sample size of a season. I think they give up something like 4 points per 100 possessions or something like that from 3-point range. Like give up 4 points more than league average. And so that's actually the worst in the league. They average 4 more points scored against them from threes per 100 possessions than the league average. But they give up 11 points less than league average at the rim per 100 possessions. So they are saving more points than they're losing by protecting the rim. And that's the formula that Budenholzer has figured out and decided to go with. But the only thing is, when you meet a team that is making a lot of threes in a game or a series, they're going to hurt you with that. And if Orlando keeps shooting threes like this, which I doubt they will. I think this was kind of a fluke game. But if they keep shooting threes like that and making them, Budenholzer's going to need to have some adjustments up his sleeve. Like, he's going to have to change some stuff around, and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see if that does happen. Like I said, I don't think it will. I'm sure in this series, the Magic are going to go back to being the team that they have been, not a super good 3-point shooting team. But yeah, for future series, for future rounds in this playoff run, the Bucks might have to look at that, like I said. But back to Thunder and Rockets. Gallo had a really good game. He was really utilizing his size, posting up against the smaller Rockets and, hitting mid-range shots. Chris Paul had a pretty good game, almost a triple-double. He was really in command there late, kind of took over, tried to make a push to narrow the gap. But yeah, honestly, not too much to break down. The Rockets are usually like that just because you know what they're doing. It's, how many threes did they make? It's like, were they hot from three or were they not, for the most part. But yeah. So Lou Dort didn't suit up tonight for the Thunder. So, he's the guy that I was talking about possibly guarding Harden. But they didn't roll him out there, and instead they had Terrence Ferguson starting. Dennis Schroeder actually did a pretty good job guarding Harden, as far as that goes. But he's just a really hard guy to stop one-on-one. So it'll be interesting to see if Lou Dort does get to play some games in this series. I'm not sure exactly why he sat out. Yeah, it says there's a knee injury, so Lou Dort is listed as day-to-day. Steven Adams had a pretty good game. I wouldn't call him unplayable. I'm interested to see what guys like Bill Simmons or Zach Lowe or some of those guys have to say about this game later. But yeah, I didn't think that he was unplayable by any means, but I also don't feel like he really punished them too bad. He had 12 rebounds, which is pretty good, but I think that he could really use his size to advantage in a bigger way than he did tonight. So I'll move on now to the Lakers and Blazers game. Wenyen Gabriel got a start tonight, which I wasn't expecting, but I guess Terry Stotts wanting to go big to match up with the Lakers running out AD and JaVale McGee in the starting lineup they normally do. So we saw quite a few minutes from Wenyen Gabriel and Hassan Whiteside, as well as Yusuf Nurkic, obviously, and we saw a lot of minutes from Carmelo, actually, who he didn't have a great game. He had a pretty good game, like rebounding and playmaking wise, out there. He, didn't shoot super well though tonight. Hit a really big shot though, towards the end of the game, and also starting off the game, he hit a couple pretty good shots in the first quarter. But yeah, not a great game for Melo, but he did, like I said, he would be capable of in this series, which is, if the game's tight down the line, hit a big shot, and that's what he did. So, Dame was quiet there for a big stretch from the middle of the second quarter to the beginning of the fourth quarter. Not a whole lot going on. I believe only had like 2 points in that time. But he had 15 in the first quarter and then 9 points in the fourth quarter, which were all really big. I'm pretty sure they were all threes. So, he had 3 threes down the stretch. Had a couple really deep ones that came at really big moments. CJ had a good game, like I thought he would. I knew that he was going to have, a few of these games in this series where, he is making quite a bit. And especially with how the Lakers played the Blazers tonight, which was like mega focused on Dame on the defensive end, trapping him all the time, full court pressing the entire game from the tip. Like they literally were guarding him at the baseline every play. So often that Terry Stotts started having Nurkic set a screen right when the ball was being passed in at the baseline every play, basically, to get Lillard some separation in the backcourt, which I don't know how effective that is. I guess it saves his energy maybe a little bit. What they did for a while, though, is just have somebody else bring the ball up the court, which I think might be part of what the Lakers want to happen. Just because, with Dame, as soon as he does cross that half-court line, he is a threat to make a shot from literally anywhere. So with all that attention on Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum was able to exploit that like he has in the past in the playoffs when teams really do key in on Damian Lillard, punishing them for leaving him open. Gary Trent Jr. didn't really play well on the offensive end tonight, but he had one really big three, which was, right at the end of the game. Kind of same thing as Melo, but Gary Trent Jr. did play some good defense tonight, like he's expected to. Hassan Whiteside had a pretty good game defensively as well. He's one of those guys that really does hit or miss. A lot of people kind of have two different opinions about him, like in the analytics community and people like that. The general opinion of Hassan Whiteside is that he's a very bad defender according to advanced metrics, just because he gives up, so many plays and so many layups, and also offensive rebounds because of how he gambles for blocks so much. He really wants to get his block rate really high is I guess something that he cares about a lot. Really hunts out blocks. And when he goes for them a lot, he'll completely abandon the boards. And, if he goes out to try to block a shot and misses it, and the shot misses because of his contest, he leaves his assignment completely open on the backside to get the offensive rebound and just get a putback. So that's the thing that he does a lot. But tonight, though, he had some really good, big blocks that came in high pressure moments in the game. So that was good to see from him. Nurkic played really well in the first quarter. Didn't do a whole lot after that until the fourth quarter. Kind of the same thing as Dame, which I think Nurkic and Dame are usually a really, really big pairing thing. When one's doing well, the other one is too. I think Nurkic and Lillard are a pair that the Blazers are going to want to keep together for a while, for this foreseeable future. I think they work really well together in the pick and roll, and then also just the way their games complement each other. LeBron having a good game, really good game, rebounding and playmaking wise, 23 points, 17 rebounds, 16 assists. He looked good out there. I think that he should have been probably a little bit more aggressive going to the basket, stuff like that in this game. But I'm guessing we will see that going forward. I think he's going to take more responsibility on the offensive end, scoring-wise, shot creating after this game. AD had a really good first half. Second half, I don't really know what happened. He just kind of fell apart a little bit. Wasn't really seeking a shot as much, and when he was, I think he kind of lacked confidence a bit, and then also was just kind of smothered defensively quite a few times in this game as well. Honestly, the Blazers actually played pretty good defense against Anthony Davis, which I was surprised by. But yeah, so I'm not picking the Blazers to win this series or anything, but it has been kind of like what I said. What I said was this series will be very interesting because I wanted to see what hypothetically what the Blazers could expose with the Lakers, just because of weaknesses and holes that we have started to see form with the Lakers, and that's exactly what happened tonight with Lillard scoring 34, McCollum scoring 21, and them getting the victory tonight. So it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. I don't think this is over for the Lakers by any means, but this is a big game tonight. I still probably pick Lakers to win this series actually, but I think it would be really cool to see the Blazers win. I think I usually do root for underdogs in most situations in series. If I don't have a horse in the race, then I usually just go for the underdog. And so, personally, I think it would be really fun to see this series go 7 or see the Blazers win this one. But I'd also be happy with the Lakers winning too, because out of all the contenders, they're personally a team that I would like to see win the championship. So whatever happens, happens. But so I think that'll be it for this episode. I don't know what I'm going to do for my next episode. I might react to games 2, or I think I'll probably just kind of play it more naturally as this goes on with storylines and things that happen. I'll be more of a reaction to stuff when they happen. Maybe do a podcast at the end of this week to kind of react to the stuff that has happened. But so I'll leave it there. Thank you guys for listening. If you're listening on YouTube and you like the podcast, please press like and consider following the channel. If you're listening on Spotify, please consider following the Spotify feed and check out more episodes. But as always, thank you guys for listening, and I'll talk to you guys next time.